Innovation can happen at any age. That's why Women in Retail Leadership Circle has released its latest report, The New Next Gen: Women Who Have Transitioned Their Careers for Successful Second Acts. This list features 21 fearless women who are reinventing, disrupting, and making an impact, all in their own different ways. Access the report to learn about the career journeys of these inspiring women. You can download the New Next Gen report today at mytotalretail.com/resources.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Women in Retail Talks. I'm Melissa Campanelli, the co-founder of the Women in Retail Leadership Circle. And today I'm delighted to be speaking with Melissa Priest, who's the founder, CEO, and president of Alexandretta Transportation Consulting, a company that provides global transportation spend management services. Melissa is also a member of Women in Retail Leadership Circle and a great friend of our group. So I'm thrilled to be chatting with you today. How are you doing, Melissa?
I am fabulous and so happy to be with you today. You know how much I love this group.
Aw, thank you. I feel like we're just having a chat, right? Even though this is a podcast.
Exactly.
Well, anyway, oftentimes we love to focus on some of our great members in our podcast, and this is an opportunity for you guys to get to know Melissa a little bit. So I'm just going to jump in with some questions that we prepared, and we'll take it from there. So let's start talking a little bit about Alexandretta. So when I mentioned briefly what it is, but can you tell us like a little bit more detail about it and when you started the company?
Yeah, absolutely. We do provide expense management, mostly with a focus on parcel and trucking within the US, Canada, intra-Europe, and intra-Asia. And a lot of times folks are like, but what does that really mean? And what that really means is that when we're not in COVID times, we're typically working with shippers who spend up to $400 or $500 million a year in one of those modes of transportation, and using our expertise to find areas of opportunity within their existing freight contracts, and then renegotiate those contracts in order to capture the savings. Now, capacity is tight right now, and because of this huge e-com explosion that we've had because of COVID, a lot of folks, especially in retail, are looking at their networks and seeing what they can ship from store and seeing what regionals they can put into place. So there's also been a lot of focus recently on network optimization studies and things of that nature.
Cool. And you started the company like how long ago? Would love
we are just a little over 3 years old.
Okay, perfect. And the reason I wanted to ask you that was because I know that you started your career at FedEx, and you transitioned into consulting, I guess a while ago, but it's been 3 years since you started the company. So, but you've been in consulting for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
So, many of our listeners are interested in making a switch to consulting right now. I know they are. Mm-hmm. We've been talking about it with our members, etc. So I'd love to hear sort of how you got the courage to give up a career at, clearly a large, successful company and start over. And how did you do it?
Yeah. It was scary at the time. I had a 6-month-old at home, and really was the primary breadwinner in the house. So it did, no doubt feel a little bit like I was jumping off of a cliff. But for me, I really wanted to, it was a few things that brought it all together. One is I wanted to be in alignment with my core values. So for me, I wanted to, instead of being, enforcing the annual rate increases on the shippers, because at that time they weren't an annual thing when I started at FedEx. It had just started, around the time I left to come into play, and a lot more of the surcharges came into play, and I was just like, gosh, it doesn't feel great to be implementing these increases. So I really wanted to be on the other side of the table, and that felt more in alignment with what I wanted to do, was to help. I always wanted to help the shippers, but I felt like I could do more for them on the consulting side. So I would definitely say, anytime someone makes it a shift to align with core values, it's always a good decision. For me also, I was typically in the top 5% of sales at FedEx Worldwide. So I felt I can always bet on myself. I feel confident betting on myself. So even though it's scary to go to this commission only structure and, leave the comforts of corporate America behind, I just felt that, okay, I can make the bet on myself and it's worthwhile. And, consulting really isn't that different from sales for certain. I mean, if you're truly doing the right thing for your client base, or at least that's your focus, that is consulting. And so I would bet that, for the folks who are within the women in retail leadership circle that are thinking about it, they're probably doing consulting now. So maybe to frame it that way, maybe we'll make it feel a little bit more palatable in, contemplating a shift like that. And then I think the final thing for me was just, I didn't want to regret it if I didn't take the chance.
That's great. Those are great ways of looking at it. A lot of it is just about how you think about it and the words that you use to discuss it. So I really appreciate that. Sort of you're already doing it. So
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
that's so great. And one thing I found in doing some research was that I think you're the only female-owned transportation consulting firm in the U.S., which I
We
find
are.
that is so interesting. So I have to ask, I mean, can you talk a little bit about what it's like being a female in such a male-dominated industry? I mean, pros,
Yeah.
cons, how do you navigate all that good stuff?
Yeah, I can. And I will say it was very purposeful to be the first one. I definitely wanted to kind of stake the claim for women in the US, so that there was a resource for, people exactly like the membership in this group. It's sometimes, it's just nice to see someone doing what you aspire to do, or doing, having a like face, in the crowd to come together with, whether you seek to do business with that person or not. So planted a flag for women there. But as far as doing business with men, and being in this really, really male dominated, position, I mean, it's been an interesting road. I mean, when I started 20 some years ago, I mean, I was often the only woman in the room, often. And even today, I mean, sometimes I'll sit in the back of a conference room and I'll do a quick head count. And usually it's, we're only 3% of the crowd. Not much more than that, depending on the venue. So I would certainly say that it's great doing business with men. I mean, they're a large part of my client base, and I've got great close relationships with clients and colleagues and coworkers in the industry. On the same token, I mean, it can be really lonely. Men and women network oftentimes very differently from one another, and there are times when I would say, oh my gosh, more golf, another sports bar, that can, it can, I mean,
Yeah.
I do golf, but I remember I had just had a baby, and I was working on this like $500 million deal at FedEx, and I mean, I had to go out and buy golf clothes that were like a way bigger size. And, I mean, I was just like maybe 2 or 3 months later, and I went and played at the Tournament Players Club in Memphis, which is this professional course. And my gosh, that nearly killed me. But I was bound and determined that this deal I had been working on for so long wasn't going to get done without me. And so out I went. But that's the kind of thing that can, it can be tiring, to hang out with the boys and keep up with the boys in that boys' world, men's world. So it can be interesting. And then I think the other portion of it is, I just, there's a lot of unconscious bias out there. And I think that really clicked for me when I was doing a lot of trade shows, because, there are a lot of, white men out in transportation, and I was working with a lot of white men, in my company. And, I would just see the white men, walking up to the other white men, and it wasn't anything against me. It's just that unconscious, oh, I feel comfortable with this person without even thinking about it, I think. And we need more diversity in the space, because, we're all better when there's more diversity in play.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I love that concept. It's sort of like it was nothing against you. It's just a matter of
It
who people feel
wasn't.
comfortable with. So,
Mhm.
it must be challenging. But it sounds like you've been able to sort of navigate it. Kind of speaking a little bit about unconscious bias, my next couple of questions are about, your company and how you put a lot of time and resources into champion equality and diversity.
Mhm.
I know you give back to the global community by
Mhm.
donating, a percentage of your profits to environmental causes. So can you tell us a little bit about some of these programs?
Yeah, I mean, we from a giving perspective, we do give 1% of the profits every quarter, and it has been mostly an environmental approach. I'm, not to say that, there's corporations large and small that donate to all kinds of different initiatives. I mean, everyone has something that resonates with them, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with giving to the local little league or homelessness or women's issues. I mean, it all matters. But I think that in some way, some folks, especially maybe smaller businesses, think, well, I'm in this industry that doesn't have anything to do with the environment. I don't have anything to do with the environment. What difference can I make? And I guess maybe I'm just trying to normalize the message a little bit in terms of, we can all make a difference. And even if it's the most, unusual, just like a transportation consulting business, we have nothing to do with the economy. If anything, planes and trains running around, are making a negative impact on the climate. But, if we all just make a shift and make some donations and put the focus there, can we do business while also making a difference? And so that's what we're trying to champion here with what we do, mostly conservation, for animals and environment. That said, we do also focus on non-environmental issues. I mean, when COVID hit, and I realized that none of the hospitals in my Southern California area had, PPE. We sourced N95 masks because we've got contacts, in China. And so, my husband and I were doing drive-bys, at these hospitals,
Wow,
in
that's
the very
amazing.
early days of COVID when we didn't know exactly, how it was, passing and transferring. And so, we'd have a sign in the window that says, there's 600, masks in the trunk, and we'd pop the trunk. Subsequent deliveries, we'd hop out and the dance, the doctors would do a little dance for joy. But we felt that was an important place to pivot last year. And then I think this month we're actually going to donate to the Your Hour, Her Power. Minnie Grossman from Weight Watchers and Mary Dillon from Ulta have been championing that. And, women can donate an hour of their wages, to women who are in need. And I just think in honor of, Women's History Month, that's a great place to spend some of our funds this month, this quarter, I should say.
Wow, that's so cool. What a great program. I have to
Yeah.
look into that one. I've heard, I think I've heard of it. I'm gonna have to make it.
It was new to me too. Yeah, I had to do some research, but it really spoke to me because we've been more engaged in the women's events this
Yeah.
time around.
Great. Well, I think it's so important that, any that you spend time doing this, you're not a huge company, but yet you
Right.
still take the time and effort to look into these things. So I think that's really inspiring.
Thank you.
So okay. So I wanted to talk about this too. I noticed in my research that you actually contributed to a book, which is kind of exciting,
Mhm.
titled Women in Business Breaking Through. And your chapter focused on leveling up and unlocking success.
Mhm.
We talk a lot about that in our group, the concept of leveling up.
Mhm.
So I'd love to just hear about what you talked about in that chapter, and maybe you can share some of your ideas with the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I touched on 5 areas that I felt kind of combined to make kind of the biggest shifts for me as I've navigated my career overall, and also just my past and my journey and where I'm going. The first one was just advocate for yourself relentlessly. um, you know and just taking a stand for what you believe in and what you need and the treatment that you deserve. And I mean, I give some examples in the chapter. I mean, that goes from blatant sexual harassment that I've experienced in the workplace and calling that out, just all the way to, hey, I see treatment that's not fair, between my male counterparts and myself. I'd like to address that. Just in a very open relationship kind of way. And I think the more that we can address the issues head on and just say this is not okay, or this is something we need to discuss, it gives us power and a voice. And then if things also don't change, then we know that we take another step on the road and take a different direction. And I think that there's a lot of power in that. And then I talked about personal development. I mean, we all have this own set of unique experiences and skills that we bring to the forefront. But, we can always improve upon ourselves, and there's so much to learn. I mean, I don't know if there's an official quote, but it's, the older I get, the more I know that I don't know. Especially in this super accelerated time that we live in with all the technology. So I think constant personal development, whether it's through personal development courses or through reading or webinars, things, information like that your group puts out, just kind of takes us to a level, and then we can break through and then go to another level. I did actually talk a little bit about visualization, and this one might seem a little bit out there, but truly visualizing the end result in mind before you begin. I mean, a lot of sports stars, have talked about that over time, Kobe Bryant and Jack Nicklaus, I see the perfect shot before I take it. Well, what does the perfect presentation look like before you begin it? Or what is the perfect contract, et cetera, et cetera. And there's so much power in taking the time to see it, to consciously visualize what you need to do to get there. And then I do believe that kind of pulls those results forward. So that's one I don't think that gets talked about. I actually made a LinkedIn post on that recently, and it was interesting that, not a lot of people connected with it. I talked about finding your tribe, because having a community is really important, and a community that resonates with you. I mean, such a huge thing that I love about this group, so positive, such depth of content. And, when we talked about, people converting to consulting, there's so many resources now. I mean, back in the day, it was just like you were alone on an island without Facebook or LinkedIn, and it was a lonely place, and you didn't necessarily always know how to find people unless you stumbled across them at a trade show or somewhere, in a position. And now there's so many resources, and it's so important to align with the people who share your vision. And then the last one was coaching. In addition to developing yourself personally, we don't always see the blind spots that we have. I certainly know weaknesses I have, but I'm sure I'm missing some. And so I think it's really important to continually be getting coaching so that you can kind of find those blind spots.
Wow, all really important topics.
Fun stuff. Yes.
Yeah, I really liked what you said about visualization, because I feel like that is a really hot topic, and I don't think people talk about it. I remember even back in college, friends of mine used to put up like vision boards where they'd cut out pictures from a magazine of like things that they wanted in their life and stuff. I always thought it was such a great thing, because if you look, if you think about it, it just gives you some kind of a framework to work towards,
It
So
does.
that's really interesting. I'm going to see if I could look into that. Maybe we could collaborate on something around that at some point.
I think that would be fantastic.
So let's switch gears a little bit. We talked a little bit about your business at the beginning, but let's talk a little bit about maybe some trends that you're seeing, because I know all of our listeners, I'm sure, are very anticipating, and they're very concerned and anticipating what's happening with shipping, fulfillment, and transportation right now with everything that's going on in the world. Are there any sort of quick, things that you're seeing retailers should be aware of or keep their eyes out for right now?
Yeah, definitely. The word unprecedented has been used so many times, but if there was ever a time to use it, it would be with regard to shipping. The capacity issues have been crazy and continued to this moment in time. There's pinch points across the UPS and FedEx networks that will continue to be there until all the restrictions are lifted across the country. And certainly, there's new leadership at UPS that's more focused on profits than volume of packages coming through. So, there's price pressure out in the parcel network this year. A lot of retailers had packages that couldn't be picked up in the holiday season. So certainly everybody should be taking a look at regional players, as much as they're able to do so. There were new oversized rules that were put into place, like a whole new category of oversized charges were put into place at the beginning of the year. That was just in the article that you published that I wrote a couple of weeks ago. And that the impact of that was a $16 charge on packages that never had a charge before. So those are starting to come through and be seen and felt. So I would certainly encourage retailers to take a very close look if they think they've got packages between 106 and 130 inches to see if they've taken that huge increase. And fulfillment, everybody's looking at fulfillment from stores and how to best optimize their distribution networks. I mean, those are some of the things that are key and going on, in the marketplace right now. And then also zonal pricing is coming out for oversize on April 11th, at least from UPS. So, we've unfortunately moved away from annual rate increases to now mid-year increases. So it's important to pay close attention to what's coming out and when.
Wow. That's a lot to think about.
It is.
Could you just briefly talk about like what you're forecasting for the holidays? I mean, do you think I'm hoping it's going to be a good holiday. I mean, I can't believe I'm already talking about this. It's not even really for spring yet, but I know we have to start thinking about it, right? So are you, I mean, despite all the challenges, are you generally bullish on the year ahead?
I am. Yeah, I'm definitely bullish on the year ahead. I do think that retailers need to really get some data and get very accurate in terms of pinpointing peak volume, because peak season surcharges will be back, and there's penalties for going above and there's penalties for going below with a forecast. So it's not something that anyone wants to just kind of throw a dart at. It's important to be very specific on that for this holiday season.
Great. And I think I'm just going to jump ahead because we're running out of time, unfortunately. I can talk to you all day, but given talking a little bit about the holiday, we really haven't talked too much about COVID. Hopefully there's some light at the end of the tunnel there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what are you most, I just would love to hear what you're most looking forward to sort of in the months ahead.
Oh my goodness, vacation. I think everybody in the US is saying that. Yeah, I mean, I am looking forward, from a business standpoint, for some of the capacity to open up and to get back to more business as usual. Certainly very excited about, getting vaccinated and being able to travel. And I know my son wants to do a college tour this summer. So we're trying to decide, he wants to go offshore. So he's trying to come up with a short list of countries that we can maybe hop to really quickly. So I think those are the ones that are on my radar for the hopefully nearish future.
That sounds great. I'm going through that now as well with my daughter. So
we can compare notes.
Exactly. Well, anyway, I think that's probably all we have time for, as I said, but it was so great to chat with you. And I feel like I learned even more about you than I already knew, Melissa. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
And I'd like to thank you all for listening, everyone that's been listening to our Women in Retail Talks podcast. For more information on it, please check out our podcast channel at womeninretail.com/podcast for show notes. Also, Women in Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. And please make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. And then we would love it if you enjoyed this episode to please take a moment to rate and review it. Until next time, this has been Women in Retail Talks.
Meet the 21 women who have reinvented themselves and their careers after the age of 40 in Women in Retail Leadership Circle's newest report, The New Next Gen. Download your free copy of the New Next Gen report today at mytotalretail.com/resources.